in case you weren't paying attention to that cute little video that my group and I worked extremely hard to make, here's a quick little review of what we went over. So, Sluaghterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut is the story of Billy Pilgrim, a guy who becomes unstuck in time and manages to travel between the beginning, middle, and end of his life, all at random moments. Pilgrim was born in 1922. He was raised in Ilium, New York, and he went to the School of Optometry, but he was soon drafted into World War II. In the war, Pilgrim was captured by Germans during battle, and it was here in 1944 when Pilgrim first became unstuck in time. He and others were moved to a POW camp in Dresden, which was later destroyed in 1945, but Pilgrim and others managed to survive by hiding out in an airtight meat locker inside a slaughterhouse. When the end of the war came, Pilgrim returns home, where he checks himself into a veterans hospital and stays in the mental ward for a while. After his recovery, he ends up getting married to a woman named Valencia. He has 2 children and he becomes a rich optometrist. Later, as told in a radio show by Billy Pilgrim himself, Pilgrim was abducted by aliens, Tralfamadorians, in 1967, and he is put into a zoo alongside actress Montana Wildhack, who was also abducted and taken to the planet of Tralfamador. It is here where he learns of the Tralfamadorian perception of time and non-belief of free will, and Pilgrim never told anyone of the trip to Tralfamador. But after having returned, he was in a plane crash in which he was the only survivor among the other optometrists that went, and his wife dies on her way to visit him, and his daughter puts him in a nursing home. He then decides it was time to tell everyone of the journey he had taken to Tralfamador. So he goes on to a talk show on the radio to tell about his experiences with the Tralfamadorians. It all ends with Pilgrim going back to 1945 after the destruction of Dresden, digging for dead bodies, and a bird that says to Billy Pilgrim, "Putuit."
Sluaghterhouse 5, Billy Pilgrim's life story is one large plot of reactionary and unchangeable events. As a child, Billy Pilgrim's father lets him sink to the deep end of a pool, but Billy liked the bottom of the pool, and Billy uses his free will to stay at the bottom, but fate would have him rescued. A few years later, Billy Pilgrim is drafted into World War II. He was the most unqualified person with a skinny and weak build, with no prior military training. During the war, he received a position where he had no weapon to defend himself and was caught behind enemy lines with 2 Army scouts. These scouts are trained and ready for war, but fate would have it that they would die, and unqualified Billy Pilgrim would live and become a prisoner. During his time at the prison camps was one of the most prominent parts fate played a role in the book. He would go through each day not knowing if it was his last and having no free will to take him away from the horrible experiences of Dresden. But yet again, fate would have it that he would survive the bombing in Dresden and ultimately the war.
Throughout the story, Billy Pilgrim had become unstuck in time by the Tralfamadorians, who did not believe in free will, since they could see the past, present, and future all at once, and said that free will is a concept only believed by humans. When he was first abducted by them, he questioned why they picked him, and they responded, "Why anything? This makes us believe that everything's up to fate and that you can't change the outcome." When the Tralfamadorians see something dead, they don't see them as gone forever, but in a bad situation, along with all sorts of good situations with it, with which they use the word "so it goes" after every death in the novel. This helps Billy cope after seeing all the death and suffering from the bombing of Dresden.
After the war, Billy married an ugly woman named Valencia, and he didn't really know why. Because of that, her father gave him a well-to-do job as an optometrist. This makes us believe that fate drove him to make the decision. He wasn't planning any of this out or thinking of consequences, and he didn't know her family was rich. He just said it was a symptom of his disease, and that it just happened. During a chartered flight with 8 optometrists, Billy knows the plane will crash, and he will be the only survivor, since he had become unstuck in time and had seen it beforehand. But instead of doing anything, he sits there, waiting for his and all the other optometrists' fate. After the plane crashes, he is in the hospital recovering, and is questioned by a Harvard professor, who is an Air Force historian, about the smashing success of the Dresden bombing. Billy tells him all the terrors that occurred in Dresden, but the professor doesn't listen. This shows us that even when Billy uses his free will to reflect on Dresden, fate would have him silent. At the end of the book, Billy travels to New York City to tell everybody about Tralfamador, his last-ditch effort to use his free will to alter his future. But when he does, no one believes him, not even his daughter, and he's called crazy. Once again, Billy tries to use his free will, but is silenced by fate.